Now, one thing I did want to ask you was how did you kind of venture into music? Because I know, at least from the research I did on you, you did have a lot of experience in the field of gaming in
That's right.
general.
Yeah.
And granted, I understand how both medias are rather large, but how did you kind of make that transition from kind of being the expert in gaming? Because you've had a lot of different positions within the gaming field as an editor. And then I think you also worked for Monster Energy, if I have that
That's
correct.
right. Yeah, I was consulting for them for a long time.
And then from there, getting into music, how did that kind of happen for you?
Sort of strange chance, really. I mean, I've been working in sort of print media and online media for video games, like you say, since 2005. And then that kind of moved into marketing consulting, like say for Monster Energy, and working directly with some of the gaming publishers, so consulting on projects. And in that time, I'd seen print media die, and then online websites and stuff have their issues, and YouTube kind of blow up. I'd actually met some of the big UK YouTubers through Monster. We signed a guy called Ali A, and that really opened my eyes to what was possible and what was happening in terms of media on YouTube. I kind of slept on it a little bit, and I think a lot of people in my position who had just been working day to day in media didn't really realize what was happening. This kind of new generation was coming through in YouTube and completely destroying what was possible in print and online. And obviously, a lot of these people just doing it completely for themselves as well, making a lot of money. So I wanted to try the YouTube thing for a while. And I did a gaming YouTube channel for about a year and worked really hard. Did 100 plus videos. Got to about 1,000 subscribers and realized the amount of effort that I was putting in, it just wasn't really paying off with, a lot of stuff going on, full-time work on top of that, family, etc., etc., etc. But then, started seeing music reaction videos and, reached out to a friend of mine that I'd known for a while. And we were kind of sharing some of these videos back and forth. And we had the idea to try it ourselves. He had like a lot of the equipment already up at his house. And then, the channel Rock Reacts was born out of that. And that blew up from 0 subscribers to 100,000 subscribers in 3 months, which was unprecedented, crazy. Could have never imagined anything like that. And then fast forward to about a year on from then, things didn't really work out between he and I for that channel. But it was pretty much a year ago, minus 2 days, that I did that first weekend reaction video. And that kind of started to really expand my own personal channel and allowed me to do music in different areas. But there was no like specific plan to move into music or anything like that from gaming. It just was an opportunity. I mean, I've always been huge into music. And back before I ever got into games journalism, I wanted to get into music, film, or video games journalism. There were the 3 choices, and games happened to be the one that came up back in 2005, a long time ago. So I already felt kind of relatively equipped to move across and speak about music with the experience I'd had in gaming. But it was no master plan behind it whatsoever, just pure kind of luck and circumstance, I would say.
Absolutely. So, if anything, it just happened organically. Kind of one opportunity led to another to where you are today.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, before we kind of jump into Rock Reacts and more from that transition to what you're doing now, again, based on my research, forgive me if I pronounced the university wrong, but you did attend Solent University. Is that correct?
In Southampton, for 3 years.
So, and your major was in film, which is what you
Yeah.
mentioned a little bit earlier. What was kind of like, because at least for me, when I went to college, it was kind of just getting there for me. It wasn't much about what I wanted to study because I didn't know what I wanted to study right from the get-go at like 17, 18.
Yeah.
For you, did you kind of know very early on, like, what, film is the thing that I kind of want to venture into?
To be perfectly honest, I'd seen the school that I went to had very limited subject choices when you got to like 17, 18 years old, very traditional subject choices. And I was very bored by all the subjects like that. And I kind of knew that to get out of that island, I had to go to university. And this was back when I went in like 2000, the government basically paid for most of it. You had to take out a loan for your your housing and all that sort of stuff. But the tuition was free. It's not like that anymore in the UK. It's £9,000 a term now, so it's a very different type of thing. So back then, almost everybody who was finishing school was going to university and just trying something. But I'd seen it on a couple of movies, film studies, people going to film school basically. Can't even remember the movies now. And I was like, oh shit, that sounds good. Let me see if there's any courses that do that, because I was really into cinema at the time. Nothing beyond, I had no major plans of becoming a filmmaker or anything like that. It just seemed like I knew I was going to university, that was going to happen if I got my grades, which I did. And was there something that I could potentially do that sounded interesting? And that was it, really.
And did your experience kind of venturing into film kind of help you a little bit with the video editing that you're doing now with you?
I'd love to say yes, but it was so long ago. I was saying this to my wife earlier today, actually. The course was kind of old school even for then. So I learned how to edit I learned how to edit film, literally chopping it up and taping it together. Useless skill, really. And we did a brief little course on video editing using like old, big, hefty computers, big CRT monitors, really slow, super slow. I couldn't remember any of that. I just basically taught myself Premiere a couple of years ago, but it was fairly self-explanatory compared to taping together actual film. Yeah, but that course was it was something to do, but it was already out of date by the time I'd finished it.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'm in the same boat as you. Like, I learned Adobe Premiere 100% on YouTube tutorials, just watching one after another, just to kind of get an idea of how to edit stuff together. Now, jumping back into the YouTube space, in doing my research, you really did blow up with Simon Miller with Rock Reacts. That channel, I think last time I checked, I don't know if this, because again, the channel has been defunct now for a little bit, but I think it amassed over 300,000 subscribers, if not more, back in its heyday. But I wanted to ask you, when you had to make that transition, and I don't want to get into the personal matters of it, but when it was decided that you two were going to go your separate ways and you wanted to continue this, were you kind of a little bit trepid about starting over from scratch?
Very, very much so. Yeah. I think my personal channel, when Rock Reacts ended at like 292,000 subscribers. It's on like 310 or something now, just through the videos are still there, right? But my personal channel, which I'd done a couple of music things on, but was basically, it's on about 18,000 subscribers, I think, which is still a lot. And it was people who just come over from Rock Reacts. But yeah, to go from almost knocking on the door 300K, and I think it's still doing about 2-3 million views a month, to back to essentially starting again, was scary. And there was discussions about one of us taking over the existing channel, that sort of stuff, but it never really worked out. So yeah, definitely, man, like I had a lot of anxiety around doing that, but I knew that that's the only way that it was going to be possible going forward. So it seemingly, knock on wood, it's working out. I've not experienced the growth on my channel like Rock Reacts had at the beginning, but I do think that was a lot of the fact that there was a novelty factor to that channel.
What a fucking great... This is what I mean. They don't give a shit. Megadeth are kind of like Slayer. This is what we do. You don't like it? Fuck right off. Fine, you got it. I love this shit, man. That's just a great opening riff.
It's a great opening riff.
How can you not like that?
People don't like it.
I don't mean you and Jen like it.
Who doesn't like it?
This guy. You don't like it.
Like metalheads reacting to hip hop, you can see that a novelty will burn very, very brightly, but can fade away quite quickly. And we'd seen that on the channel. Obviously, it had gone like this, but it started to plateau quite a lot, and the views per month had come down quite a lot. It was still doing fine, but I was always had it in the back of my mind that there was only so long that people were going to care about outsiders, reacting to this music. And also there's only so long you can kind of be honest about it. If you're listening to 300 songs a year in a genre, how long can you truly say you're a complete outsider to it? I was starting to feel that after 6-7 months of being, really immersed in the world of hip hop and kind of the surrounding genres, and being a fan before, but just having missed so much of the music, that, especially after a year, I was like, I kind of feel like I'm just a fan now. And, there's still loads of music I haven't heard, and it'll be fun to do it on camera, but I can't really play this. I don't want to play a role if somebody doesn't know what they're talking about, because it's not really true anymore, despite the fact, there's still plenty, like I said, that I haven't heard, and there's still loads of stuff that I'm holding off on so I can make content out of it. But can't remember what you asked me now, just talking away. Normal me.
No, but I actually like that because, at least for me, I never really thought about it from that perspective that, the novelty of two outsiders kind of listening to this music, it is kind of special, but eventually it gets to a point where if you're doing this kind of, obviously professionally, you're no longer really considered the outsider anymore. So I think that's kind of a very intriguing way to kind of look at it. But in looking at your channel now, there has been just continual growth. Like, if you see it on the comment section, you see it on the likes, you see it on the subscribers, you have a fan base there that I feel genuinely respects what you put out, and they respect your opinion as well. How does it feel for you to know that you have that fan base who look at you and look forward to content that you make?
Honestly, mate, it blows my mind every single day. I mean, I don't take it for granted whatsoever, and it's totally humbling. I mean, it really, really is. And the only way I can kind of come to terms with it is the fact that I'm also a fan of YouTubers, different channels, whether in music or other fields. And, I support other people. I'm a patron of other people on Patreon. Do you know what I mean? So I'm in that ecosystem myself as a consumer. So if I don't think about it too much, I just go, okay, crazily, some people watch me like that, just as I watch other people. Because if I think about it too much, I start to freak myself out because it was never, I don't know. It was just, it's not really, I'm not a particularly extroverted person in real life. I'm reasonable, kind of half and half, I'll quite happily be quiet. It's not really my nature to want to be center of attention, things like that. So it's a little bit weird, but at the same time, I've always been interested in content editorial, obviously based on my career. And that was when I was younger, I wanted to work on magazines. Like I said, that was always my plan. So this is kind of an extension of that. But yeah, it's totally humbling. When I put a video out and you see all these people up with them, they're saying just first, or, I get a lot of goat comments in the first 10 minutes of a video coming out that people want to see. And it's nuts, man. It's totally nuts. I can't wrap my head around it too much. Like I said, if I think about it too much, I'll just freak myself out, and then I get in my own head and then question what I'm doing. So I just have to kind of just go with it.
No, but speaking from the outside looking in, I think you have very little to get worried about, man. Just continue doing what you're doing, because you're doing a really amazing job, man. You really are. Now, it's interesting that you kind of mentioned a little bit that you're more of an introvert than an extrovert, because honestly, watching your videos, it does not come off that way at all. When you're putting on the sunglasses or you're just vibing out, it does not seem like that's a very introverted person. But I wanted to ask you, did you always kind of then envision yourself working more behind the scenes when you were first starting out?
Yeah, I mean, less so behind the scenes, but more just behind words. So it was always the plan to be a writer. That was what I always wanted to do. And there wasn't really video back then. Anyway, this is in the 90s. It didn't really exist. Obviously, there's TV, everything like that, but not like, you had to choose to be a TV presenter, and I was nothing I was ever interested in or ever even thought about. But just over time, I became a bit more comfortable with the idea of being in front of camera. And weirdly, even though you are technically speaking often to thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people on some videos, I am just here, like you can see, I'm just here on my own, and it's just a little camera there, so I can kind of be a bit more of my extroverted elements in my personality, a bit more of my kind of daft self, which is nice, because I've had comments from people in my real life who've watched videos and they're like, that's not the Jon that I know. And I'm like, well, that is actually the real me, but I'm just not really, I don't show that off in front of 20, 30 people at a time, because that's also not me either, to want to be loud and be center of attention. I just kind of like to just get on with things. I don't know, it's complicated.
No, I understand. I understand where you're coming from, because I feel I'm kind of similar in that sense, where I'm interested in extrovert-like activities, but inside I'm an introvert that starts wondering, like, all right, can I really do that? how's it going to come off when I try it?
There is introvert extrovert is actually a sort of defined personality type, and when I found that out, I was like, okay, well, it all makes sense now, because I never really identified with the true introverts who had no, really struggle with all social things, and don't want to make any sort of jokes or anything of themselves whatsoever. I mean, I feel for people like that, and I can certainly relate to elements of that. But I was like, well, I'm not that, and I'm definitely not loud, hold court at dinner table with 20 people. Oh, that's just not me at all. I mean, I'm always an admirer of people who can do that, but yes, that's never been me either. So yeah, I was actually kind of mind blown when I saw that a few years ago on the internet. I was like, okay, there is a middle ground. There are other people out there like me. So that makes sense.
Right down the middle.
Yeah.
Now, one other thing that I wanted to ask you is, when you decided to become a full-time YouTuber, right? Did you ever come across, because again, there are so many people in this, media space that hope one day they can become a full-time YouTuber. Did you ever face any, I don't want to say adversity, but criticism from either friends or people who were acquaintances with you, and you said, yeah, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and become a full-time YouTuber?
Honestly, no, but a lot of it was circumstance. So I'd been working with Monster for 8 years, and that just came to an end. Different staff, a guy I'd been working with left, and it was a different person came in, and we didn't really work in the same sort of way. I was always working remotely. So that ended in December last year, and I'd been working hard on the YouTube alongside that, and the Patreon had started by that point, and it was just making a little bit of cash. So it came to a point where it's like, okay, I can't do that job that I've been doing all this time anymore. It literally doesn't exist. So I need to jump into something and try and really sort of push myself into this world to see if I can make it work. And I had a little bit saved up, not much, but just enough to like a buffer for a couple of months if it all went wrong. And then the world ended in sort of end of February, March, right? So yeah, you can't. There was no choice at that point. Can't go and get a job. Can't go and do anything really, apart from just try and double down on what I'm doing. And fortunately, very fortunately, things have been able to grow in that sense. And the sort of this dream of becoming full time somehow has managed to work out through these unbelievable circumstances. Excuse me, but not too much. I mean, to be honest, I didn't really speak to anybody about it apart from my wife, but she obviously knew that the other job was coming to an end. So yeah, I think she was nervous about it, but she also kind of believed in me, and also had seen this idea that I'd had for the other channel, Rock Reacts, go from nothing to this significant thing in a short space of time. So I think the evidence was there that it could possibly work again. So I'm still freak myself out about it most days, and just convince myself it's all going to go wrong the next day. So yeah, that keeps me on my toes, definitely.
No, I feel you. But again, I just feel like and maybe in a very weird way, the pandemic was almost kind of, God, knock on wood. Obviously, the pandemic is horrible, but it was in many ways kind of helpful in some ways, because it kind of pushed you over the edge to do it.
Sorry, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where obviously the choice of words that you use in a situation like this, you want to make sure I get the right words. I think there's certain people who had been focusing on content had noticed, and as consumers as well, like I talk about consumer of content, I'd noticed, obviously, like all of us, was watching a lot more because we couldn't fucking do anything else, right? And I noticed myself that I was watching a lot more YouTube videos that were sort of about 20 minutes long. Through March, when we were on proper lockdown here in the UK, as opposed to like 8-minute videos, 6-minute videos, single track videos. If I was watching reaction videos, I was always looking for something that just had a little bit more substance to it. Just honestly, just so there was more to watch, just so I didn't have to keep trying to find something else. As simple as that. And I always trust my viewing habits. I think if I'm doing it, then that probably means a lot of people are, which means I could maybe try and reverse engineer that and try and push that back out. So that's why I said, right, I'm just going to really focus on doing these long form album reactions, which take a lot of work, but seemingly with people stuck, not able to go anywhere, they're more inclined to spend 20-30 minutes watching a video and then maybe do that again and watch 2 or 3 videos in one day of that length. And that did seem to a sort of big upward trend. coupled with the fact that The Weeknd released a new album, obviously, in March, which is a big one. And I mean, to like you say, I think the circumstances have been horrendous, but for certain people in the world of content, they have seen a bit of an uptick in what they've been doing.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you use that term reverse engineering, because you'd be surprised of the people that I've interviewed how often that term is used, reverse engineering. Whether it's kind of visualizing where you kind of want to be and then kind of figuring out how to work backwards from that. Did you ever have or ever viewed, because I know you said that you support other video reaction channels, other people's Patreons. Did you ever look at someone else's kind of channel? And I'm not saying you duplicate anything, of course not, but looked at kind of where certain people are or where Rock Reacts was and say, okay, this is where it is, this is where I want to get to, and now I have to, kind of reverse engineer, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The Rock Reacts basically was a reverse engineering project from channels like Lost in Vegas. I don't know if you know those guys. Obviously, the American hip hop fans discovering heavy metal music, basically, and they went into do country and they do hip hop as well. And the reason that they're over 1 million subscribers now, and what they did so well is they did the outsiders looking in content. So that's how I found them, reacting to Metallica, reacting to Megadeth, reacting to Rage Against the Machine. But they also were really, really good at doing the hip hop stuff. And so I'd watch both types of, I found those guys through the metal, then watched the hip hop stuff as well. And it's like, okay, well, they've got they're valid in this space, the hip hop space, and they bring value there, but they're also bringing a different type of value. They don't know what they're talking about necessarily yet with the metal stuff, but the reactions are really engaging. So it became a reverse engineering of that. It's like literally could two metalheads, one of whom literally knew nothing about hip hop in Simon, and he'd copped to that himself, and one who was a fan of the genre, but had basically not heard so much, especially in the last 10 years. My eldest kid is 9, and there's just been a blur, especially the first 5 years of that, just a blur in terms of finding new music. No chance. Could it be reverse engineered? Plus seeing that channel and other channels, some of the artists that seemingly that artist fan base was pushing videos out, them being excited about reaction videos, Logic being one of the, who was one of the building blocks of Rock Reacts, definitely reacting to Logic's music, just because his fan base was so rabid and would actively support channels that were giving him love, and seeing which other artists that seem to have that sort of fan base at the beginning. And then it just kind of, the momentum happened itself, and the fan base and the audience was so excited to say, oh, you need to check this out. Because we're all like that, right? I'm a serial recommender. I love recommending stuff to people. I'm doing it all the time. TV shows, music. I'm a nightmare for it. And it's seemingly everybody else is as well, based on how many I get every single day across every single platform. But that's fine. But that has also built the channel, because all these people going, oh, you need to listen to this J. Cole song, which now I'm like, okay, I know J. Cole's back catalogue, but back then I knew the name J. Cole, but I don't think I'd ever heard one of his songs. He didn't really get airplay on the radio in the UK or anything like that. So that was another big moment for Rock Reacts. So it's just reverse engineering at the beginning, like you say, just to get it to the first place, and then allowing the audience to kind of drive it. And that's kind of been the same with the Patreon. I've seen some other big patrons out there, a lot of the gaming ones, how they structure it, what sort of value that they were offering. And I've seen some people who kind of use it more like please donate $1 or $2 a month, but they don't, it's because I'm asking, basically. And ultimately that works for a bit, but seemingly people want the idea of some content for their money. They want to support you, but the idea that they're getting something. So I was seeing trends in channels and outlets that didn't have crazy amounts of subscribers. Like there's a video games one that I kind of based a lot on what I do on. It's called RKG, 3 guys who left IGN, British guys. They've been doing a big streaming series on IGN on Dark Souls, and they basically just broke it off into their own company, built a Patreon, and they're still on £30,000 a month on Patreon, and they've got 50,000 YouTube subscribers. I mean, that's a legitimate, significant business that they've built. And their channel is not massive, but their fan base is really, really, really committed and passionate. And enough of them want to support, and they get something back. They get an extra podcast. They get actual content and value. So yeah, just looking, reverse engineering, like you say, but not duplicating. Trying to work out what elements you can take from other things, what elements you can borrow from other things, but make sure that it works for what you're doing. And so yeah, it still feels kind of authentic, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a very kind of interesting kind of way to look at it, where whatever you reverse engineer has to reflect your specific audience, because not every single audience is the same. So it's not like a one piece fits all type thing. Now, one thing that you mentioned that you're a recommender. You always like recommending stuff. So during a pandemic, man, what are you watching? What are you watching on TV?
What did we watch? I mean, I'm not so good for TV series anymore. Like my wife, she was always looking for a new series or something to watch. I felt like we watched something though. We sat down and watched something together. Then I can't remember, man. The problem is my memory is just shocking. But yeah, in terms of TV shows, there was one big TV show. I don't know. It's something that everybody watched that I've immediately forgotten. But if there was something over the last 6 months that everybody watched, it was that. But my brain's forgotten what it is. But obviously, I'm recommending tunes all the time to people, annoying my brother every day, other people, and then games is something that's always been it since professionally for however long and before that. So just bothering people with little game recommendations here and there, and then just like annoying memes, just anything.
It's funny, like honestly, I'm not much of a gamer. Do not like games. Not that I don't like games, I just never really got into it.
Yeah.
But during this pandemic, I'm seeing myself buying old games that maybe I would have been interested in years ago from like different, like former gen, like Xbox 360 games I'm looking at. It's weird. It's weird. I don't know why I'm doing that, but that's what the pandemic's kind of causing right now.
Yeah, man.
Now, one of the last things I did want to ask you is, where do you kind of see the future of your channel and your career going? Like, what's that next kind of goal that you kind of foresee for yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. And it's obviously something I think about a lot. And I think when you see a YouTube channel, there's loads of, I'll do a longish answer for this, right? So I think about this a lot. So there's loads of YouTube channels out there that help people who are just starting out on YouTube, right? Who are trying to get their first 1,000 subscribers. And they're like, how to do your thumbnails, how to do this, all that sort of stuff. And then some of them are really, really good. And I definitely recommend following a guy called Nick Nimmin, video creators, a couple more. But there's basically no resources out there for once you get to the point where the amount of time you're having to put into a channel, whether it's YouTube or whatever social media you're in, is so much that you kind of have to prioritize it other things. There's no real resources like for when you hit 25,000 subscribers, or I don't have that, but maybe like 60,000 Instagram followers or something like that. Because then it does get into that realm of, okay, this is kind of like a job, but it doesn't pay enough to be a job, and there's no real resources for that. And I think the temptation then, because naturally you will see if something has gone like this at the beginning and it starts to plateau, or it's going like this, the temptation is to start looking at different ways to be novel or looking at trends. And that's why you see a lot of YouTube channels, I think, kind of homogenizing. They're all doing the same challenge. All the gaming channels are all playing the same game because it kind of guarantees views, but it becomes a bit stale and a bit boring. And I worry about just becoming the same as other channels. So for me right now, it's about staying the course and not trying to be too crafty with it. Like, I think I could get views. For example, I could get views if I just suddenly decided reacting to loads of K-pop. I would definitely get views. And we did it a bit on Rock Reacts. But for right now, where my audience is, they'd see through it. I think they'd accept it because the guy is just doing it to get a bit of views. But I, in my heart, know I don't really like K-pop. Right? I know I don't. There's pretty much nothing that I could listen to that I could give a positive reaction to. Nothing. I don't hate it, but I would either have to lie, which I don't want to do, and be positive about something in order to get those views, or just for no reason whatsoever make a video to piss off loads of K-pop fans by saying I don't like their music. Well, I could just leave it well alone because I think that's a better thing. So for me right now, it's about staying the course. I mean, there are big music channels out there, 10 times the size of mine, that get tons of views. Anthony Fantano being who I'm talking about, basically. And I know, I mean, obviously, music is massive and the fan base is massive. So if 200,000 people have subscribed to a channel and like it, I have to believe that could kind of be 500,000, 600,000 doing the same thing, waiting for whatever's coming out, reacting to it, still doing some of the old stuff, and then if another idea comes up, maybe doing stuff that isn't necessarily reactions, a little bit more review stuff, perhaps some vloggy stuff, trying little things here and there, but not huge jumps, not huge directional changes, and also try not to be too homogenous with other channels. Just kind of like just doing what I'm doing. Like you say, when it's a big track or a big album, it does tend to get views, and that seems to be pretty consistent. And until that starts changing, touch wood, it won't, then I shouldn't change too much, although the temptation is always there to try and jump on a trend or, try just constantly change things just to try and see another spike in views, in subs and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, for me, hopefully in a few years' time, the channel will just be significantly bigger. My production will be better, and my sort of ability of doing it will be better. And yeah, it will just keep moving. I guess that's it. Yeah, it's all just playing it by ear, really.
But I think that's kind of like the wise move to kind of do, because I feel you have to make moves based on what your brand is. And I think so far what you've done, like even I think it's funny how even the background that you choose, it's like it's synonymous now with you. Like every time I see that, like it's kind of like that purplish color. It's kind of like a studio thing, and then you put a poster in the background. That's very much kind of your calling card in some respects.
Yeah, I can't change it. I know the old school fans like the actual background, which is basically this. Obviously, it's green screen that I use. I never try and lie about that, because I just basically go, new people watching my videos who've never seen me before don't want to see a pipe, because I'm basically I'm outside of my house in a conservatory, and they'll see that pipe and they'll be like, no. So it's all about those first 2, 3, 4 seconds of perception, and YouTube is so important. So yeah, you'll see. I mean, everybody's YouTube video, if you look at the analytics, goes from 100 to like 50% in the first 2 seconds, and it's just. I mean, how many YouTube videos do you click and be like, nah, or I clicked this one by accident? Now we all do it, right? But when I was using real life background, it was dropping below that, and when I started to use like you say, the green screen, things like that, it's not. The old school fans are like, oh, I prefer the pipe, I prefer the weird door, because it's a bit more real, and they'll watch whatever, and I love that. But the green screen is it's just about perception. But yeah, like you say, just keeping that brand thing going without being too cynical about it, I guess.
And last thing that I wanted to touch on with you, man, is you did mention it a little bit, where it was maybe there's a certain genre that you maybe don't listen to, that you don't like, and you don't want to maybe anger that fan base or anything like that. But do you find it at all difficult to kind of always be 100% honest with your reviews? Because, for example, I remember your review for Tekashi 6ix9ine, one of his crazy songs, where you'll give him his due, like it's catchy and everything, but at the same time, it's like the dude is not maybe the best lyricist in the world. So do you find it sometimes hard to find kind of that middle ground where you're always honest with whoever it is that you're reviewing?
Yeah, I don't find it difficult to be honest, but my mentality for reviewing music or covering music, especially, even more so than games, is that I want to look for the positives in whatever, and I'm basically always in awe of people who can make music. I've not even tried to be a musician, so I'm always kind of hold anybody who's out there making music in pretty high esteem. And also the other thing is, you don't have to buy music anymore. You can, but unlike video games, I mean, you don't have to buy some video games now, but basically, they're kind of half art review, half product review. And music used to be like that as well, and now it kind of isn't, because you're just basically being asked to give up your time to listen to music these days. Even if you don't have Spotify, you can just go on YouTube and all the music's on there, right? So I don't feel necessarily, if I don't like something, but it's kind of like a 5, 6 out of 10 don't like, rather than this is shit, I don't really feel necessary to try and be too harsh on it, because they're not asking the audience for much apart from, can you listen to my tune? They're not asking for any money. There's nothing too cynical going on there. And it's only when I feel like something cynical or particularly lazy or nasty from an artist, then I'd really go in a little bit. But yeah, most of the time, I'd rather, saying music is boring as well is probably one of the harshest things you can say. But the idea of really, really going in on an artist, I think it's only that Tekashi record I've done. But the thing was just, it was crap. It was just lazy. It was made really quickly. It was super low effort, and it was just a nasty sort of commercial, money grabbing. Even though they're not asking for money for it, it still felt like money grabbing, which is why I kind of went on that, and it sounded awful. But but yeah, so like, to answer your question again, being honest, no, but I don't consider myself like a music journalist, so I don't feel like I need to necessarily, constantly keep some sort of scale of scores that is in line with every other video or anything like that. I'm happy to just kind of go with my heart on a lot of it. And basically all I want to do is hear great music. That's what the channel really is, and that's what we hope for. And yeah, if the most disappointing thing, if it doesn't hit that, is just the video's not going to be as good. And the only way to make the video good is to be deliberately nasty. And I've never wanted to be that type of reviewer, even in any of the stuff that I've done. Because it's just, it works in terms of views and audience and clickbait and all that sort of stuff. But it's just, I'd be sort of losing a little piece of my soul, I think, every time I did it.
I think that's a great way to end this interview, because really your YouTube channel in general, it is a very kind of positive space in general. Even with the critiques, it's a very positive space. So again, Jon, thank you so much for your time, and I really do appreciate it. I know we're working on completely different time zones, so I know it's...
Like, I worked for an American company for 8 years, so it's no issues. I'm used to it.
No, but for real, man, thank you so much for your time. Coming from a fan, I really do love your work, man. Everything that you post, I watch, even if it's an artist that I don't listen to, I'll still watch the video.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
No, for real, man, you really do good work. And again, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Anthony. Thank you very much, man.
All right, man. You have a good night.
Take care.